Telling you, man, a lot of men that I know grew up with, was sleeping with men back in the day for setups in the clubs, for paint jobs, for rims, and they probably still sleeping with them. And you know I ain't lying. You know I ain't lying now.
Anybody. This man slept with over 600 women. 600 women and gave them HIV. And majority of those women were...
And if you are not catching my drift, I'm talking about DL men. Nearly 5,000 women. Did you know that Black women rates are almost 10 times higher than white women?
For lawsuit, bro, like that's serious stuff, bro. You playing like that? Like, I didn't know until you left the show that you had HIV, bro.
Have you noticed something that's becoming harder and harder to ignore? More people than ever seem to be coming online and sharing stories about discovering they were exposed to HIV. Every time you open social media, there's another person telling their experience, exposing someone they trusted, or warning others about what happened to them. And this isn't just a trend happening on TikTok or other platforms. When you look at the actual statistics, the situation becomes even more concerning. Even in 2026, Black Americans continue to be affected by HIV at significantly higher rates than other groups across the country. The numbers have remained troubling for years, and many people are still asking the same question. Why? Most experts point to factors like healthcare access, poverty, education, and awareness. And while those explanations certainly play a role, some people believe they don't tell the entire story. When you study the data over time, the pattern seems much more complicated than it appears on the surface. One person who has spoken about this is Orlando Brown. Now, Orlando is a controversial figure and has faced plenty of personal struggles throughout his life. Because of that, many people automatically dismiss his opinions. But others argue that people who have been pushed outside the mainstream often see things differently because they aren't worried about protecting their image or pleasing anyone. According to Orlando, the HIV crisis within the Black community can't be explained solely by poor decisions or a lack of education. He believes there are larger influences at work that most people fail to recognize. In his view, society is being shaped in ways that many individuals don't even notice. That idea may sound unbelievable at first. However, cases like the one involving South Carolina DJ Jason Pope have caused some people to take a second look. The details surrounding that case raised serious questions, especially regarding the number of alleged victims and how authorities handled certain aspects of the investigation. For years, people have speculated about powerful systems influencing communities from behind the scenes. Whether those theories are true or not is something people continue to debate. But when stories like this emerge, they often reignite those conversations. So in this video, we're going to examine the current HIV statistics, take a closer look at the Jason Pope controversy, and explore why Orlando Brown believes there may be more going on than most people realize. In one viral clip, Orlando referenced MKUltra, the CIA's secret program that carried out controversial experiments decades ago. Using that historical example, he argued that people should pay much closer attention to the media they consume, the messages they absorb, and the public figures they choose to follow. His warning was straightforward. If you're not paying attention to what's influencing your thoughts and decisions, you may end up participating in behaviors that ultimately work against your own best interests without ever realizing it.
What we don't know is we've all gone through this experiment. It's called MKUltra. This is what we've all been going through, and we are all just waking up from. You know, if you don't know Leviathan, but Belphegor, if you don't know Satan, if you don't know Lucifer, if you don't know what you're talking about and how they're coming, if you don't know how to identify it, then you start smoking all kinds of shit and drinking and getting off stuff because you can't see it coming. Then all of a sudden, you're not the same anymore either, okay? Because this is very real. That's why they're doing that shit.
Building on Orlando's argument, his main point is that powerful institutions and influences may be shaping society in ways most people never notice. Whether you agree with that perspective or not, some people believe the HIV crisis within the Black community raises questions that deserve closer attention. Consider the numbers. Black Americans make up only a small percentage of the U.S. population, yet they continue to account for a disproportionately large share of new HIV diagnoses every year. That gap hasn't existed for a few years. It's been present for decades. Black women, in particular, are diagnosed at significantly higher rates than white women. When experts explain these disparities, they usually point to factors such as poverty, healthcare access, lack of insurance, and medical mistrust. Those explanations are valid, But many people feel they only address part of the problem. The bigger question is why these issues continue to affect Black communities so heavily generation after generation. Part of the answer can be found in history. Events like the Tuskegee syphilis study, forced sterilization programs, and documented cases of discrimination in healthcare created deep mistrust that still exists today. Many communities remember those experiences, and their impact hasn't simply disappeared with time. The disparities go beyond HIV. Studies have repeatedly shown that Black women face higher risks during pregnancy and childbirth compared to white women, regardless of education level or income. Statistics like these have fueled ongoing debates about systemic inequalities within healthcare systems. For some people, this is where Orlando Brown's comments start sounding less outrageous. They point to historical examples and ask whether society has truly moved beyond those kinds of abuses, or if similar patterns still exist in different forms today. That brings us to a case that many believe should have received far more national attention: Jason Pope, a DJ from Florence, South Carolina, who spent years building a reputation in the local entertainment scene, while serious allegations were quietly accumulating in the background. According to reports, concerns involving Pope surfaced as early as 2011, when allegations were brought to authorities. However, the case was eventually closed without major action being taken. Over the following years, additional complaints and reports continued to emerge. In another instance, evidence was reportedly provided directly to law enforcement, yet the investigation once again failed to move forward in a significant way. As time passed, more alleged victims came forward and more disturbing details began to surface. Investigators later uncovered materials that intensified concerns surrounding the case. Critics argue that despite multiple warning signs appearing over several years, meaningful intervention came far too late. When authorities finally took stronger action, prosecutors alleged that numerous underage girls had been victimized over an extended period of time. Reports also claimed that at least one victim had been knowingly exposed to HIV. Perhaps the most shocking part is the timeline itself. Initial reports appeared years before Pope's eventual arrest in 2019. For many observers, the biggest question wasn't just what happened, but how it was allowed to continue for so long before serious action was taken.
A predator gets reduced sentence after 700 minors. What the actual? That's what it says. Per Atlanta Black Star, major South Carolina traffic case that languished in the court system for more than 4 years came to an anticlimactic conclusion in August 2023 when 40 Jason Roger Pope, white disc jockey, received a reduced sentence after pleading guilty to 13 felony charges of having sex with children, including hundreds of underage Black girls.
But here's what makes this story even more controversial. Despite the scale of the allegations, most people have never even heard of Jason Pope. For a case involving such a large number of alleged victims, many believe it received surprisingly little national attention. That alone has raised questions. Some people argue that if a case of this magnitude had involved different circumstances, it would have dominated headlines across the country for months. Instead, many outside South Carolina remained completely unaware of it. Of course, systemic bias is one explanation that people often point to, but others believe there may be more to the story. Over the years, speculation has grown online, with some individuals suggesting that Jason Pope may have benefited from powerful connections behind the scenes. Now, it's important to be clear. There is no public evidence proving that he worked for any government agency or was part of some larger operation. However, those theories continue to circulate because of the unusual details surrounding the case. Critics frequently point to the fact that multiple reports and complaints were allegedly made over a period of years before meaningful action was taken. They argue that repeated warnings appeared to go unnoticed, allowing the situation to continue much longer than it should have. Others focus on the legal outcome itself. Despite the disturbing allegations that surfaced throughout the investigation, many people felt the final consequences failed to reflect the seriousness of the accusations. That perception has only fueled additional skepticism. Another issue that continues to spark debate is the HIV-related allegations connected to the case. Some observers argue that if intentional exposure occurred, it should have been treated as one of the most serious aspects of the investigation. Yet many believe that issue never received the level of attention they expected. Adding to the controversy is the role of the media. For a case involving such shocking claims, coverage remained relatively limited compared to other high-profile criminal cases. To many observers, that lack of attention remains difficult to understand. As a result, questions continue to circulate years later. Why were early warnings allegedly overlooked? Why didn't the story receive more widespread coverage? And why do so many people still know so little about a case that generated such serious allegations? Those unanswered questions are exactly why the Jason Pope case continues to be discussed long after the headlines faded.
Pictured here is Jason DJ Kid Pope. This white supremacist went on to infect over 693 young Black girls with HIV/AIDS knowingly. I am not joking. His criminal rap sheet goes all the way back to December 1995. That's 26 years. December 1995, he was charged with impersonating an officer, convicted, and given a 1-year sentence that was suspended and 2 years of probation. In February of 1996, he was charged with the prostitution of a minor and given a 30-month sentence that was suspended. August of 1997, he was charged with assault and battery, convicted, and only received a fine. In January of 1998, he was arrested for trespassing and resisting arrest, resulting in another fine. April of 1988, he was convicted of disorderly conduct, received another fine. March 1999, charged with forgery and larceny, no conviction. December of 2000, charged with forgery, finally sentenced to just 90 days in jail. September of 2001, he went on to be charged with forgery again and given a suspended sentence of 5 years and 2 years of probation again. Again, March of 2002, obtaining signatures under false pretense, no conviction. October of 2002, opened a retail business without a license, suspended sentence of 30 days. May of 2003, driving on a suspended license. He took a small break from the white privilege, picked it back up May of 2006, and did malicious injury to personal property, but didn't get sentenced for either. October of 2006, charged with the illegal distribution of a recording. I bet you can guess what he recorded. January 2007, once again, operating a retail business without a license. May of 2007, charged again with illegal distribution of a recording and just given a 2-year sentence of probation. November of 2011, convicted of unlawful use of a phone, no jail time. December 2011, he gave a 13 and 16-year-old girl AIDS on Thanksgiving Day. No charges were filed. He did not serve any time.
So, are we really supposed to believe that someone could spend years facing allegations like these, receive multiple complaints from different people, and still avoid serious consequences without anyone asking questions? For many observers, that's the part of this story that feels the most difficult to understand. Some people argue that cases like this go beyond simple privilege or luck. They believe the pattern itself is what deserves attention. Not necessarily because it proves a conspiracy, but because it raises concerns about how certain situations are handled compared to others. And this brings us back to what Orlando Brown was talking about earlier. Remember his comments regarding MKUltra and the idea that society may be influenced by forces most people rarely think about? Whether you agree with him or not, supporters of his viewpoint believe the Jason Pope case reflects exactly the kind of pattern he was describing. Now, to be clear, there is no evidence proving that Jason Pope was working with the government or involved in any organized operation. Making a claim like that would require proof, and no such proof has been presented publicly. However, many people argue that the unanswered questions surrounding this case are what keep the discussion alive. For example, why did allegations continue surfacing over such a long period of time before stronger action was taken? Why do some people feel that certain aspects of the case received less attention than others? And why does a case involving such serious accusations remain relatively unknown to the general public? These are the kinds of questions that continue to fuel debate online. Some believe the explanation is institutional failure. Others point to systemic issues within law enforcement, the legal system, or media coverage. And then there are those who believe something even deeper may be at play. When discussing the rise of HIV cases in Black communities, opinions remain divided. One side argues that the issue is primarily linked to healthcare disparities, economic challenges, and social conditions that have existed for decades. The other side believes those explanations don't fully account for what the statistics are showing. Whatever conclusion people reach, one thing is certain: conversations like these aren't going away anytime soon. Cases such as Jason Pope's continue to generate controversy, and Orlando Brown's comments continue to spark discussion among those searching for answers. So what do you think? Are these trends simply the result of long-standing social and healthcare problems, or do they point toward larger issues that deserve closer examination? The debate continues, and many people are still looking for answers.